Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Some people drain your battery, others delete the charger. That's not poetry. That's survival strategy, and Sigma females mastered it early. Here's the uncomfortable fact. People who are highly self-directed and growth-oriented don't get tired of connection. They get tired of repetition. The same excuses, the same emotional loops, the same recycled personalities with new usernames. And while everyone else calls it being too selective, psychology calls it pattern recognition, combined with low tolerance for emotional inefficiency, which is a fancy way of saying she can tell when this relationship is going nowhere, and she refuses to waste premium energy on economy-class interactions. So when a Sigma female detaches faster than expected, it's not mood swings, not coldness, and definitely not attitude. It's the quiet moment she realizes she's growing in a room full of people rearranging the same furniture. And once that realization hits, even her patience starts packing its bags. Welcome to the real reason Sigma females get tired of people fast. And trust me, it has nothing to do with being antisocial and everything to do with being done with predictable nonsense. Number 1. They notice emotional patterns faster than most people notice faces. Sigma females don't wait for big betrayals or dramatic fights to figure people out. They pay attention to the small repeats. Who only shows up when they need something? Who gets quiet when accountability shows up? Who becomes sweet when they want access and distant when they get it? While most people judge others by words and first impressions, she watches behavior over time like it's a silent scoreboard. And once the pattern is clear, the emotional attachment starts losing its grip. This is why she gets tired of people fast, not because she's impatient, but because she doesn't need 10 episodes to understand the plot. When someone keeps running the same emotional software, blame, charm, avoidance, ego, insecurity, she doesn't argue with it. She just files it under predictable and mentally moves on. To her, staying longer doesn't feel loyal. It feels like ignoring what's already obvious. What really drains her is realizing that many people don't want to grow. They want to be managed. They want understanding without change, forgiveness without effort, and closeness without responsibility. She picks up on that early. And once she sees that someone is more committed to their comfort than to becoming better, her energy starts pulling back on its own. No big announcement, no dramatic exit, just emotional disengagement happening quietly in the background. Another reason this hits so fast is because Sigma females usually spent a long time studying people before they trusted them. Past disappointments trained them to read emotional rhythms the way others read traffic lights. Green means safe. Yellow means pay attention. Red means stop investing. And when it turns red, they don't argue with the signal, they trust it. So when people say she gets tired of people too quickly, what they really mean is she stopped waiting for potential and started responding to reality. She's not leaving because she hates people. She's leaving because she understands them. And understanding, when it's sharp enough, removes the illusion that things will magically improve if she just stays and hopes harder. To her, emotional intelligence isn't about tolerating everything. It's about knowing when a pattern is permanent. And once that clicks, staying longer doesn't feel kind anymore. It feels like volunteering for the same disappointment in a different outfit. Number 2. They get bored when conversations stay on the surface for too long. Sigma females have a radar for depth. Small talk, gossip, and routine chatter don't just feel boring to them. They feel like wasted energy. While most people are content talking about the weather, weekend plans, or someone else's drama, she is scanning for insight, originality, and real connection. If a conversation doesn't spark curiosity, challenge thinking, or reveal anything beyond what's obvious, her interest fades fast. She doesn't have the patience to sit through emotional or intellectual filler just to be polite. This boredom isn't arrogance. It's a natural filter that protects her time, energy, and mental clarity. She's experienced enough to know that most people operate on autopilot, repeating the same talking points and ideas endlessly. She quickly notices who can contribute something meaningful and who is just repeating social scripts. If she senses stagnation, she withdraws mentally first, then emotionally. The people around her may notice her detachment but rarely understand it. They interpret her quietness as moodiness or coldness, but the truth is simple. She doesn't waste attention on what doesn't matter. She also gets frustrated when curiosity isn't mutual. Conversations are not one-way streets for her. She observes who listens, who challenges assumptions, who shows genuine interest in ideas, experiences, and emotions. If the other person is content to coast, she stops coasting with them. Her energy doesn't stretch to people who are unwilling to engage beyond the obvious. A dialogue with no substance feels like draining her brain with empty calories, and Sigma females are never okay with mental starvation. Over time, this makes her seem selective, distant, or even intimidating. But it's really about efficiency and respect for her own mind. She's not rejecting people because they're boring. They're boring because they refuse to be real, curious, and present. She values depth over quantity and clarity over small talk. That's why she can move through crowds of people, feel fully engaged in a few conversations, and be utterly disinterested in the rest. For a Sigma female, the surface is a waiting room, and if the conversation never leaves it, she leaves too. Number 3, they sense when someone is performing instead of being real. Sigma females have an uncanny ability to detect when people are pretending. They notice the tiny inconsistencies, the words that don't match the actions, the smiles that don't reach the eyes, the eagerness that disappears the moment it's inconvenient. Most people assume charm or politeness is enough to mask true intentions, but she sees through it immediately. To her, performance isn't flattering, it's exhausting. It signals a person who values appearance over authenticity, and she has no patience for that energy drain. This awareness makes her interactions unusually honest, even if it's uncomfortable. She doesn't need rehearsed compliments or scripted empathy. She needs truth. When someone is performing, she recognizes the effort behind it and the reason for it. Maybe they want approval, maybe they want control, or maybe they just haven't learned to be themselves. Regardless, her interest fades quickly because she cannot engage with a facade indefinitely. The more someone tries to sell a version of themselves instead of simply showing it, the faster she distances herself. What makes this even more striking is that Sigma females often blend in effortlessly themselves. They don't feel the need to impress or prove anything, so they can immediately spot who is trying too hard. The contrast is stark, authenticity versus performance, and she values authenticity so highly that any performance, even subtle, feels dishonest enough to repel her attention. It's not judgment, it's instinct. She is wired to protect her mental and emotional space from people who are emotionally expensive without being real. Because of this, she doesn't argue with or call out the performance. She disengages silently. She recognizes that changing someone else's behavior is rarely her responsibility, and investing energy in someone who isn't real is wasted. To her, emotional economy matters more than social comfort. When she walks away, it's not a rejection of the person entirely. It's a refusal to participate in the illusion. She reserves her attention for authenticity, and anything less becomes invisible. For a Sigma female, detecting performance is like seeing through smoke. Once she sees it, she doesn't need proof or confrontation. She simply reallocates her energy toward people and experiences that are real, genuine, and worth her time. Number 4, they outgrow people mid-relationship and don't feel guilty about it. Sigma females have a unique way of moving through life. They grow fast, internally and externally, and they refuse to slow down to fit someone else's pace. Relationships, friendships, or connections aren't static to them. They evolve alongside her. The problem is, most people don't keep up. While she's exploring new ideas, pushing boundaries, and challenging herself, others may still be stuck in routines, comfort zones, or outdated mindsets. She doesn't wait around for them to catch up. She doesn't feel obligated to carry anyone along for her journey. Outgrowing someone isn't a betrayal. It's a natural consequence of living intentionally. She doesn't leave with drama or resentment. There's no pointing fingers, no long explanations, no social media announcements. She simply recognizes that her path has diverged from someone else's and adjusts accordingly. The guilt that often haunts people for leaving relationships doesn't hit her because she understands a hard truth. Staying where growth is impossible is a slower, more painful kind of betrayal to herself. Her loyalty isn't to familiarity, it's to authenticity and progress. This is why many people are caught off guard by her detachment. They assume relationships are permanent and that effort alone can sustain a bond. For her, effort is meaningful only if it leads somewhere real. If a connection remains stagnant while she evolves, she stops investing without hesitation. It's not about rejection, it's about alignment. She measures relationships by whether they reflect her present reality, not her past comfort. Outgrowing people mid-relationship also teaches her discernment. She quickly learns who is flexible enough to grow with her and who is destined to remain behind. The ones who can adapt become deeper connections. The ones who can't fade naturally, without confrontation. Over time, this ability to outgrow without guilt becomes a superpower, allowing her to preserve her energy, maintain clarity, and prioritize growth over attachment. For a Sigma female, life is too short to stay in rooms that don't expand her mind or heart. Outgrowing people isn't a flaw. It's a mark of someone unwilling to settle for stagnation while chasing excellence in every corner of her existence. Number 5. They hate emotional dependency more than loneliness. Sigma females value independence above almost everything else, and that extends to the people around them. They've learned early on that relying too heavily on someone for emotional support, validation, or stability comes with invisible costs. When someone leans on them constantly, it doesn't feel like trust or intimacy. It feels like a weight dragging them down. While many people fear being alone, she fears being trapped in someone else's emotional needs more. Loneliness can be temporary and self-managed, but constant dependency is exhausting and limiting. This is why she often steps back from relationships that others would fight to maintain. It's not that she lacks empathy or care, it's that she recognizes the subtle ways dependency consumes energy and distorts boundaries. When someone needs her attention constantly to feel okay, she can't be fully present without losing herself in the process. Over time, this creates a clear mental line. She will invest in people who bring balance, mutual respect, and emotional autonomy. But she refuses to be a crutch for someone unwilling to stand on their own. Her awareness of emotional dependency also sharpens her decision-making. She notices subtle signs early, the frequent calls or messages, the expectation of reassurance, the inability to tolerate silence. To her, these patterns aren't minor quirks, they're predictors of emotional exhaustion. She doesn't wait for the problem to worsen. She distances herself before the weight becomes too heavy, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. Interestingly, this doesn't make her cold, it makes her selective. She thrives in connections where mutual strength, respect, and independence exist. She values people who can handle their own emotions without relying on her energy, and she invests deeply in those who meet that standard. The rest? She lets them go quietly without argument or explanation, because she knows that carrying someone else's dependency is a slow erosion of her freedom. For a Sigma female, Freedom isn't just physical or social, it's emotional. Emotional dependency feels like a chain, and she refuses to be bound by it. Choosing herself over someone else's need is not selfish. It's essential for her sanity, growth, and the integrity of her relationships. Number 6. They can't tolerate repetitive victim stories. Sigma females have very little patience for people who get stuck in the same cycle of complaining and blaming without taking action. Hearing someone repeat the same story over and over about the same failures, the same betrayals, or the same unfair situations doesn't spark sympathy. It sparks fatigue. To her, life is about learning, adapting, and moving forward. When someone stays trapped in their past, refusing to grow or take responsibility, she doesn't see a victim. She sees wasted energy and a pattern that will never change. This is why she gets tired of people fast. She notices the way some individuals narrate their suffering, almost like a performance, expecting attention and understanding without doing the hard work to change. For her, talking endlessly about problems without solving them is a red flag. It signals that this person isn't interested in growth or solutions, only in repeating the drama. She isn't cold-hearted. She simply values progress over stagnation. She also picks up on the subtle manipulations behind repetitive victim stories. Often, these narratives are paired with guilt-tripping, emotional fishing, or indirect pressure. A Sigma female sees through this instantly. She understands that someone who insists on reliving their misfortune is often trying to keep others tethered to them, to control attention or extract validation. And she refuses to participate in that cycle. Her energy is too valuable to be spent rescuing people from problems they aren't willing to fix themselves. Because of this, she disengages quietly but decisively. She doesn't argue or lecture. She simply recognizes the pattern and distances herself emotionally. Over time, her tolerance for repeated excuses or self-pity diminishes even further. She doesn't need people to be perfect. She needs them to be responsible, self-aware, and willing to grow. For a Sigma female, the repetition of victimhood isn't just boring. It's draining, predictable, and unproductive. Staying around people who constantly replay their failures is a slow erosion of her time, her energy, and her peace of mind. She values connection, but only with those who can match her level of accountability and forward motion. Number 7. They read manipulation in tiny behaviors others ignore. Sigma females have a level of perception that makes subtle manipulation obvious to them, long before anyone else notices it. The smallest shifts in tone, the fleeting looks, the calculated pauses, or the tiny inconsistencies in someone's words and actions, all of it registers immediately. While most people brush these things off as quirks or accidents, she sees the intent behind them. She doesn't need grand gestures of deceit to recognize someone's motives. Even the subtlest attempts to control, guilt, or influence her emotionally are clear as day. This sensitivity makes her immune to most traditional manipulation tactics. She can detect when someone is trying to provoke a reaction, earn sympathy, or bend her to their will without saying a word outright. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Over time, she can predict not just what someone will do, but why, and she adjusts accordingly. The result is that people who think they're clever enough to influence her often fail completely, and she gets bored of their attempts fast. What's remarkable is how quietly she handles it. She doesn't call people out in public or confront them for small infractions. That would waste her energy and escalate unnecessary drama. Instead, she disengages, emotionally distances, or sets boundaries that make manipulation ineffective. She reserves her energy for people who operate with honesty and integrity, and she doesn't tolerate emotional games. This ability also makes her fiercely independent. She doesn't rely on anyone else to point out deceit, because she notices it herself. And once she notices it, the dynamic changes. The manipulator loses their influence, and the relationship either transforms into something real or quietly dissolves. For a Sigma female, manipulation is like a flashing warning light. Once it's detected, it's impossible to ignore. She doesn't fight it, she simply doesn't feed it. Her attention, trust, and emotional investment are too valuable to be wasted on someone who plays games behind the scenes, and that's why she gets tired of people fast. The moment manipulation enters the mix, the connection is already compromised. Number 8. They lose interest when curiosity is not mutual. Sigma females are naturally curious about the world, people, and ideas. They ask questions, listen deeply, and observe carefully, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely want to understand. But this curiosity is not one-sided. If the people around them show no interest in learning about her, asking thoughtful questions, or engaging beyond surface-level chatter, she quickly loses interest. It's not about vanity or needing attention. It's about recognizing energy flow. Relationships are exchanges of attention and understanding, and if the exchange is heavily unbalanced, she disengages. This disinterest happens quietly but decisively. She notices when she is always the one initiating conversations, always the one making the effort to connect, and always the one uncovering new layers in the relationship. When curiosity is one-sided, she recognizes that the other person either cannot or will not invest in genuine engagement. At that point, continuing to pour energy into the connection feels futile. Her attention is too valuable to be spent on someone unwilling to meet her where she is. She also measures curiosity in subtle ways. How someone reacts to her ideas, how they respond to challenges, whether they remember details she shares, or if they ask questions that reveal real interest. All of it matters. A person who only responds passively or superficially signals that the relationship lacks depth, and she begins to mentally step back. The more effort she gives without reciprocity, the faster her energy retracts. This isn't judgment, it's instinct. She thrives on mutual exploration and growth. Connections where curiosity flows both ways feel alive and energizing. Connections where it doesn't feel draining and one-sided. Over time, she becomes extremely selective about who earns her full attention. People who can't or won't show genuine curiosity are quickly filtered out, leaving room for relationships that truly stimulate her mind and spirit. For a Sigma female, mutual curiosity isn't optional, it's a necessity. Without it, the connection stagnates, the conversations feel empty, and she moves on, leaving those unwilling to engage quietly behind. Number 9. They feel drained by people who fear solitude. Sigma females are deeply comfortable being alone. They use solitude as a tool for reflection, growth, and self-recharge. They don't need constant social interaction to feel validated or alive, and they understand the power of standing independently. But being around people who fear being alone, who constantly need attention, reassurance, or company, drains them like nothing else. Those people demand emotional energy not because of malice, but because they are insecure and unwilling to sit with themselves. For a Sigma female, being around that energy feels suffocating. She quickly notices the patterns: someone who always needs to talk, someone who constantly seeks approval, someone who fills silence with noise just to avoid being alone. While most people interpret loneliness as a harmless struggle, she sees the deeper implications: dependency, distraction, and emotional neediness that can hijack any interaction. She doesn't want to fix it, she doesn't want to carry it, and she doesn't want it to slow her down. Being around people who fear solitude feels like walking through quicksand. Every step requires extra effort just to maintain her own balance. This is why she disengages fast. She doesn't argue, lecture, or try to convince someone to be independent. She simply reallocates her attention and presence to people who are capable of being whole on their own. Sigma females value freedom and clarity above social comfort, and someone's inability to tolerate their own company is an immediate signal that the connection will be emotionally taxing. Over time, she becomes highly selective about the people she allows into her inner circle, favoring those who respect solitude as a form of strength rather than a problem to be solved. Being around people who fear solitude isn't just inconvenient for her, it's exhausting. She thrives on calm, self-sufficient energy and mutual respect for personal space. When someone constantly leaks their neediness into her world, it becomes too much. A Sigma female doesn't abandon relationships lightly, but when emotional drain enters the mix, she quietly withdraws, preserving her energy and sanity without apology. Number 10. They are allergic to social hierarchies and unspoken rankings. Sigma females have little tolerance for social games, power plays, and invisible ladders that others climb to feel important. They see through status obsession, popularity contests, and the subtle jockeying for position that consumes most social spaces. Where many people find comfort in aligning with the right crowd or proving themselves in subtle ways, she finds it suffocating and exhausting. Social hierarchies feel artificial to her, and anyone who measures their worth, or yours, based on them, immediately loses her attention. She notices the tiny signals that reveal hierarchy thinking. Who tries to dominate conversations? Who manipulates opinions for approval? Who measures success by external validation rather than internal growth? For her, these behaviors are not just tiresome. They're a drain on energy and authenticity. People who obsess over rankings or appearances are often incapable of genuine connection, and she instinctively distances herself. She doesn't argue about it. She doesn't try to change it. She simply reallocates her attention to those who operate on substance, not position. This aversion also affects how she navigates groups. She rarely competes for dominance or tries to prove herself socially, but she instantly spots those who do. Their need to climb, impress, or control feels petty and predictable, and she has zero patience for it. Unlike most, she values independence over belonging, substance over superficiality, and alignment over approval. Being around hierarchy-driven people feels like being trapped in a slow-moving treadmill of approval-seeking, and she refuses to invest energy there. Her instinct is simple. The second she recognizes social power games, she mentally checks out. She keeps her distance, limits engagement, or exits entirely. It's not hostility, it's preservation. Sigma females protect their energy fiercely, and engaging with someone consumed by social rankings is a guaranteed emotional tax. For a Sigma female, social hierarchies are toxic energy disguised as order. Once she identifies them, she no longer participates, prioritizing freedom, authenticity, and meaningful connection over the illusion of social ladders. She doesn't just get tired of people, she actively filters out the energy that feels fake, controlling, or draining, leaving room only for what matters. Number 11. They dislike being needed for validation. Sigma females value authenticity and self-sufficiency above all else, and that extends to the way they interact with others. They notice quickly when someone relies on them not for guidance, support, or real connection, but as a source of constant validation. Compliments, attention, reassurance, if these are demanded rather than naturally offered, it feels less like connection and more like a trap. Being needed in this way drains her energy, limits her freedom, and makes the relationship feel transactional rather than genuine. She can see the signs early. People who constantly fish for approval, check their worth through her reactions, or expect her to prop up their confidence show a pattern that is impossible to ignore. It's not that she doesn't want to support others, she does, but she refuses to become the mirror someone constantly leans on to feel whole. To her, Requiring her validation signals dependency, insecurity, and emotional immaturity. She doesn't have the time or patience to meet those needs repeatedly, especially when the other person isn't willing to cultivate self-respect or internal stability. This instinct also protects her sense of self. Sigma females are independent thinkers, and they value interactions where respect and admiration are freely given, not extracted. When someone makes her responsible for their emotional equilibrium, it's like an invisible leash, restricting her freedom and forcing her to expend energy in a way that doesn't serve her growth. Over time, this pattern becomes intolerable. She doesn't need confrontation or drama. She simply withdraws her attention and involvement, redirecting her energy to people who can stand on their own. For a Sigma female, being needed for validation is the fastest way to create distance. It's a signal that the relationship is unbalanced and unsustainable. She thrives on interactions rooted in mutual respect, independence, and authenticity, where connection comes naturally rather than being demanded. Anyone who relies on her for self-worth will quickly find themselves on the outside, quietly replaced by relationships that energize, inspire, and align with her values. She doesn't burn bridges out of spite. She leaves quietly, preserving her energy and her peace, because her validation is her own, not a commodity to be borrowed or rented. Number 12. They are wired to protect momentum, not comfort zones. Sigma females are driven by growth, movement, and progress in every area of their lives. Comfort zones, routine, and predictability feel suffocating to them because staying stagnant goes against their nature. They prioritize forward motion, learning, evolving, and expanding their skills and mindset over preserving relationships, environments, or people that slow them down. When someone around them clings to safety, resists change, or prefers emotional stagnation, it drains their energy and causes frustration. She doesn't leave out of malice. She leaves because momentum matters more than comfort. This need for forward motion is deeply ingrained. Sigma females track how people respond to challenges, change, or growth. If someone hesitates, complains, or avoids action, she notices immediately. Over time, repeated exposure to resistance or unwillingness to evolve becomes emotionally exhausting. It's not that she rejects people who are cautious or slower to adapt. She simply refuses to make their stagnation her burden. Relationships, conversations, or friendships that don't contribute to growth or at least allow space for it are filtered out. Her ability to protect momentum also makes her strategic. She doesn't argue endlessly to push someone forward. She recognizes that real growth cannot be forced. If someone's fear, laziness, or emotional rigidity is persistent, she redirects her focus elsewhere. Energy spent on stagnation is energy stolen from progress, and she refuses to let that happen. Sigma females understand that their time and attention are finite, and investing in people who resist evolution slows them down and hinders their potential. This instinct also creates a sense of clarity and decisiveness in her relationships. She doesn't linger in situations that feel stuck or predictable. She values connections that encourage growth, challenge ideas, and push boundaries. Anything that anchors her to a comfort zone she doesn't want, whether it's a person, a pattern, or a mindset, is quietly left behind. For a Sigma female, comfort zones are not places to nurture. They are traps that hinder progress. Protecting momentum is a survival mechanism, an energy strategy, and a guiding principle. She moves fast, adapts faster, and disengages from anything or anyone that threatens the forward motion of her life. Staying behind in stagnation is not an option. Sigma females are not complicated. They are intensely observant, fiercely independent, and unapologetically tuned into the reality of people and situations around them. They move through life with a quiet precision, noticing patterns, reading intentions, and protecting their energy with a level of clarity most people can't comprehend. Their fatigue around people isn't about being cold or distant. It's about survival, growth, and integrity. They recognize who drains them, who stagnates, who performs instead of being real, and who refuses to take responsibility, and they step back before wasted energy and frustration accumulate. Every choice a Sigma female makes, whether it's detaching from someone emotionally, outgrowing relationships, or refusing to engage in games, dependency, or shallow interactions, is rooted in self-respect and forward motion. She doesn't linger in chaos, excuses, or emotional manipulation because she understands the cost, her peace, her focus, and her momentum. She invests deeply in people who bring authenticity, curiosity, accountability, and energy that aligns with her growth. But those who can't match her pace, depth, or clarity are quietly filtered out of her life. That is why Sigma females often get tired of people faster than most. And it's not a flaw, it's a superpower. Understanding this isn't just about recognizing her behavior, it's about appreciating the standard she sets for connection, growth, and energy exchange. A Sigma female values substance over comfort, authenticity over performance, and action over excuses. She doesn't seek chaos, but she refuses to compromise her internal equilibrium to accommodate it. Her detachment is deliberate, measured, and powerful. And once you grasp the psychology behind it, it's clear why her presence commands respect, why her attention is rare, and why she chooses carefully who enters her inner world. If this deep dive into Sigma female psychology gave you a new perspective, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to catch more insights like this. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences, and share this video with anyone who needs to understand the hidden truth about Sigma females. Your support fuels more content that goes beyond the surface, explores real patterns, and uncovers the psychology most people miss.